Yes. So we are finished with the first Excel sheet where we have converted this qualitative data into frequency distribution table, and then we have drawn the bar graph and pie chart for that data. Then we have done this problem where we have all the numerical values, the quantitative data. We have converted that data into a into a group data with class intervals of width 5 using the histogram option in the data analysis with these bin values, and then we have also drawn the histogram for the same. So this histogram is showing us the distribution of data. This histogram is showing us the distribution of data, how data is distributed, between the minimum value and the maximum value. So you can see a large amount of data points are between the minimum value, which is I guess 10, and the value which is close to 2025. So we have a large number of observations which are between 10 to 25, and then we have very less observations which are between 25 to 35. And because of that, we can see the distribution is having a slope towards the right hand side. This distribution is having a slope towards the right hand side. So if I draw the distribution of data in a curve format, I may get a curve something like this. So for my curve, I am having slope on the right hand side. So in case of distribution of data, we can have multiple types of distributions. Either we can have a symmetrical distribution, or we can have non-symmetrical distribution. So when I say symmetrical distribution, symmetrical means when you have a kind of bell-shaped curve. When you have a kind of bell-shaped curve, then that is a symmetrical distribution. That means you have same kind of curve on both sides of the middle line. Now this middle line is represented by mean generally. This middle line is represented by mean. So we say that distribution is symmetrical around the mean. Distribution is symmetrical around the mean. Now in this case, what is the mean value of this data set? If you look at average value, it is 19.25. It is 19.25. This is the average value. This is the mean value for this data set. Now, if this is the mean value for this data set, where I can plot 19.25, where I can plot 19.25, somewhere here. So this becomes my mean. This point becomes my mean. So you can see my data is not distributed evenly around the mean. The number of observations on the left hand side are more compared to number of observations on the right hand side, but they are in more spread format. So we'll come to this when we'll discuss measures of shape. What I'm talking about is the concept of skewness, that we can have either right skewed data or left skewed data. And in that case, we say that it is non-symmetrical distribution. So based on histogram, you can do multiple types of analysis. And what is the ideal distribution is the bell-shaped curve. When you have a symmetrical distribution around the mean, we call it as we have a bell-shaped curve distribution or normal distribution. What Nandan said in yesterday's session, that word is called as normal distribution. Normal distribution means evenly distributed around the mean. So we'll discuss that concept in more details once we'll complete standard deviation and variance and other concepts. So this is a kind of benefit of having distribution in front of you. You can have multiple types of analysis based on distribution of data. Fine. So now we'll go ahead and now this data set, this is a group data. So this is my first group of 10 to 20 with frequency 4. And this is my second group with 20 to 30 with frequency 7 and so on. So in this case, this is my lower limit, this is my upper limit, and this is my frequency. So these are my three columns. So what we'll discuss right now is the concept of cumulative frequency. Now, when we say cumulative frequency, there are two types of cumulative frequencies. First is less than cumulative frequency, and second is greater than cumulative frequency. So we have two types of cumulative frequencies: less than type of cumulative frequency and greater than type of cumulative frequency. Now, first I'll tell you how to calculate, and then I'll tell you the meaning. So less than cumulative, the first value will remain as it is. That means 4. For the second value, it is the current frequency plus the previous total. So total becomes 11. So 4 plus 7, 11, 11 plus 8, it is 19. So now I have to repeat this formula for remaining cells, and that will give me the cumulative frequency of less than type. Similarly, greater than type of cumulative frequency, the same process I'll start from the bottom of the table. So my first value will be as it is in the frequency. Then the second value will be the current frequency plus the previous total, 3. And similarly, I have to copy paste this formula for remaining cells. So if you can look at the total, it remains same, 50 in both less than and greater than cumulative frequency, because total of f is 50. Fine. Now, what is the meaning of less than cumulative frequency? What is the use of less than cumulative frequency? Suppose if I ask you a question that how many observations I have below 40? How many observations I have below 40? So in that case, if I want to count number of observations which are below 40, I have to start counting all the observations from 10 to 20 class interval, 20 to 30, and then 30 to 40. That means 4 plus 7 plus 8. That becomes 90. So when I want to check how many observations are under or lesser than the upper limit of any class interval, I have to go for the less than cumulative frequency. Suppose if I ask you how many observations I have below 60. So when my question is about how many observations below the upper limit of the class, go for the less than cumulative frequency. Simple. Number of observations are 40, which are less than 60. Now this concept is very important, less than cumulative frequency, because it is used in calculation of median of group data. So when we'll discuss mean, median and mode, I'll explain you what is the use of less than cumulative frequency in calculation of median also. Similarly, for greater than cumulative frequency, if I ask you how many observations are above 30, how many observations are above 30? If I want to count a number of observations above 30, then I have to count all the observations above the class interval of 30 to 40, that is 8 plus 12 plus 11 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1, and that comes as 39. So whenever my question is how many observations above the lower limit, go for the greater than cumulative frequency. So it is generally said, the two statements which are very important, when the question is about how many observations are less than upper limit of any class interval, then go for less than cumulative frequency. And when I am asking about how many observations are greater than lower limit of the class interval, then go for greater than cumulative frequency. So these two statements are very important. So have you understood cumulative frequency? It's a simple concept. As the name suggests, it's a cumulative effect. So I'm adding all the frequencies one by one of all the class intervals and creating that cumulative effect. So that is the meaning of cumulative frequency. Now, based on this cumulative frequency concept, we have a graphical representation of cumulative frequency. So we have seen the graphical representation of group data in terms of histogram and then in terms of bar graph and pie chart for qualitative data. But then you have a different type of data representation only for cumulative frequency, and that concept is called as Ogive curve. That concept is called as Ogive curve. Ogive curve. So in case of Ogive curve, as we have two types of cumulative frequencies, we also have two types of Ogive curve. One is less than type of Ogive curve and second is greater than type of Ogive curve. So now we'll see how to draw these Ogive curves in Excel. Yes, are you with me? Have you understood everything? Can we go ahead? Yes, okay. So what I'll do is I'll just create two different tables so that it will be easy for me to draw the Ogive curve. So I'll copy this less than cumulative frequency as a separate column, maybe here itself. So I have to copy them as values only because there is a formula. Okay, so this is my less than cumulative frequency and this is my greater than cumulative frequency values. Now, as I have told you that whenever I talk about less than cumulative frequency, now these less than cumulative frequencies are linked with upper limit of the class, correct? Because we have discussed this example. If I want to count how many observations are below upper limit of the class, we go for less than cumulative frequency. So less than cumulative frequencies are always linked with upper limit of the class, and the greater than cumulative frequencies are always linked with lower limit of the class. So I'll just group together all these things so that fine. So now what I have to do is I have to just draw the graph for these values. And what kind of graph I have to draw? Ogive curves are line chart. Ogive curves are line charts. So that's why these are called as curves. So these Ogive curves are types of line chart. So I have to draw a line chart for this table and I have to draw a line chart for second table. So I'll select all the values of both the columns for less than cumulative frequency, go to insert, and then I'll go for a line chart and simple line chart. Sorry, just a minute. Okay. So just select all the less than cumulative frequencies, simple line chart, and you'll get a less than cumulative type of line chart. I'll keep it here. Now in this chart, if you look at x-axis, it is showing default values as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I want to replace with the upper limit values, which is in this column. So what I have to do is just select the x-axis, right click, and click on select data. Now the default values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which you can see here. So you have to click on edit, and then you have to select the labels. So I'll select whole column, because these are my labels on x-axis, and once I select, you can see x-axis has changed. Now it is showing all the values between 20 to 90. I'll just click on OK, and now this is my line chart, or I can say this is my less than type of Ogive curve. Okay. Now similarly, I can draw the greater than type of Ogive curve. So I'll try to draw greater than type of Ogive curve also. So what I have to do is again select all the values in greater than cumulative frequency, go to line chart, simple line chart. It will be exactly in opposite direction, has to be, because the process is also exactly opposite. And now in this case, I have to change my x-axis, select the x-axis, select data, and click on edit, and select all the values of lower limits of the class intervals and click on OK. So this is my less than type of cumulative frequency, and this is my greater than type of cumulative frequency. Less than type of Ogive curve and greater than type of Ogive curve. So this is how you can draw the Ogive curve in Excel. Now what is the basic use of these Ogive curves? If anybody can guess, what is the use of Ogive curve? Yes, anyone? Okay. So the basic use of Ogive curve is, now we are slightly moving towards the prediction model. These Ogive curves can be used to predict the values. For example, I have all the values which are at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90 in my table. But what if I want to count how many observations I have below 45, for example? How many observations I have below 45? That value is not available in the table, but I can try to predict. It may not be 100% correct. I can try to predict how many observations are below 45 using this graph. So if this is 40 and if this is 50, I can draw a line at 45 approximately. So it is coming here. So what is this point at 45? Is approximately something here. So that means I have approximately 25 to 26 observations which are below 45. So I'm trying to predict something. Now it is not the actual use, and this is not the best method to predict something, but this is how you can use Ogive curve. There are multiple other use cases also. We'll come to that one by one. But this is the basic use of Ogive curve. You can try to predict some values which are not available with you in the data set. Presentations. So we'll start with this presentation. We'll try to complete this in today's session, data representation. So we have gone for this basic data representation, which is a frequency distribution table. Then for qualitative, we have seen bar graph and pie charts. For quantitative, we have seen the histograms and Ogive charts, and we'll see the remaining part in this presentation. So the same example we have used, and how to create the frequency distribution table. Now we are aware of this, how to use this in Excel. So I'll skip this slide. Relative and percent frequency, why we need this? Because if you want to calculate the angles for the pie chart, we draw a pie chart in a circle, and one circle has 360 degrees of angles. So if you want to draw the angles for a specific portion of any soft drink, then you have to calculate the relative frequency and percent frequency first. So what is relative frequency? It is frequency of that class divided by total. So the frequency of the Coke Classic is 19 divided by total is 50. So 19 upon 50 will be the relative frequency of Coke Classic. 8 upon 50 will be the relative frequency of Diet Coke. 5 upon 50 will be the relative frequency of Dr. Pepper, and so on. So relative frequency of a class is the fraction or proportion of items belonging to the class. So what is the fraction of Coke Classic to the total number of items? What is the fraction of Coke Classic to the total number of items? The fraction is 0.38. Likewise, the fraction of Diet Coke to the total number of observations is 0.16, and so on. So if I add all the relative frequencies, the addition has to be 1. Because if I divide total by total, the value will come as 1. And if I multiply the relative frequencies by 100, what I get is percent frequency. So we have 38% of observations with the name Coke Classic. There are 16% observations for Diet Coke. There are 10% observations for Dr. Pepper, and so on. So total of all the percent frequency has to be 100. Then how to draw the bar graph? We are aware of this. If you have a data set with you, how to draw the bar graph, and you can do this in Excel now. Then how to draw the pie chart? We know how to draw the pie chart in Excel, but if you want to calculate the angles, then first you have to calculate the relative frequency for each class, for each level, and then you have to multiply that relative frequency by 360, because one circle has 360 angles. So 0.38 into 360 will give the angle for Coke Classic. So consider this as a baseline. Calculate the angle 0.38 into 360 and draw that angle here, and that will be the portion for Coke Classic. Then consider this as a baseline for Pepsi. And then calculate 0.26 Pepsi. Relative frequency is 0.26 into 360. Whatever is the angle, and draw that angle here, and so on. Continue this process, you will get a pie chart for the given data set. Next is if you want to convert the quantitative data into class intervals, what is important is to define number of classes, to define appropriate length or the width of the class, then the upper limit of the class and the lower limit of the class, and the class midpoints. Yes, so this is the way in which you can draw the dot plot. Now these dot plots can give you how many observations you have. So it's a kind of representation of frequency distribution table only, but with frequencies of individual data points. Dot plots will give you frequencies of individual data points. But these dot plots are useful when you have a small data set, up to 50, 40, 50, 60, 100 values. But if you have 3,000, 5,000, 50,000 values, then dot plots are not a preferable option. So this is one of the methods to represent data if you have a small data set. Then the next method is histogram, which we have discussed already in details, how to draw histogram out of the table. So we know that. Next is cumulative frequency. We have done this also. We know how to calculate less than cumulative and greater than cumulative frequency out of the data set. Then how to represent the cumulative frequencies in graphical method is using Ogilvy curve. So we have two types of Ogilvy curves, less than Ogilvy curve and greater than Ogilvy curve. So that also we have covered in Excel. Next type of data representation is stem and leaf. Now what do you mean by stem and leaf is we generally have one common stem and then we have multiple leaf values. So that is the same structure in stem and leaf display also. So we consider the first row only. If I consider only first row, all the values 112, 72, 69, 97 and 107, I'll just write down all those values in the first row in a ascending order. So from 69 to 112, 69, 72, 97, 107 and 112. You can see there is a blank in between 72 and 97 because we don't have any value in the 80s. So I write down all the values and then we have to decide what is the size of a leaf and what is the size of a stem. So I'll consider all the unit places is my size of leaf or leaf values. So what I'll do is I'll draw a line between my unit places and remaining part of my numbers. So the left hand side becomes my stem and the right hand side becomes my leaf value. So I have a leaf of 9 for stem of 6. I have a leaf of 2 for a stem of 7 and so on. So there is no leaf for stem of 8. That because of that it is blank. So this becomes a representation of my stem and leaf of first row only. So I have to repeat this process for second row, third row, and remaining data set. So in next row, I have first value as 73. So already I have a stem of 7. So what I'll do is I'll add a leaf of 3. After 2, I'll just write down 3. That becomes a leaf of 3 for stem of 7. So I can easily recreate my original data if I know this is my stem and leaf. So the value has to be 69, 72, and if there is a 3, then it has to be 73 and so on. So if I repeat this process for all the numbers, what I get is, if I repeat this process for all the numbers, what I get is this. What I get is this. So the values are like 69, 68, 72, 73, 76, 73, 76, 75, and so on. In case of double digit, this is 107 is the first value, 104 is the second value, and so on. Now, if you look at all the leaf values, they are not in sorted manner. So the next step is just to sort the leaf section, and you'll get this. If you sort the leaf section, you'll get this stem and leaf display. So this is the stem and leaf display output. And from this, you can come to know that at what stem you have the maximum number of observations. So maximum repetition is in the 90s. Then we have repetition, next maximum repetition in the values of hundreds, then 80s, then 110, and so on. We have least number of observations at 140 and at 60. So this is a stem and leaf display. Again, just like dot plots, stem and leaf display is useful in case of small data sets up to 40, 50, or 100 values maximum. What is the use of this stem and leaf? If you look at histogram, actually, if you rotate anti-clockwise, this stem and leaf, if you rotate it anti-clockwise, what you get is histogram. So the only difference is in case of histogram, you don't get all the internal details, which are the actual values. You just get the top value that we have these many observations in 90s. But in stem and leaf, you can get the internal values also. So if you rotate this stem and leaf anti-clockwise, what you get is histogram. Fine. So this is another method to represent data, stem and leaf. The next is CT, that is cross tabulation. Now we have discussed tabular and graphical methods used to summarize the data for one variable at a time. So whatever we have discussed till now, all the data sets, we are talking about only one variable. Often a manager or decision maker requires tabular and graphical methods that will assist in the understanding of the relationship between two variables, or maybe more than two variables. So at least two variables. So if we have to represent two variables at a time, then there is a tabular method and there is a graphical method for that. So to represent the association or the relationship between two variables, we have cross tabulation, which is a tabular method, and scatter diagram, which is a graphical method. So first we'll look at the cross tabulation method. Suppose I have this data, cross tabulation. Again, I guess this PDF also has been shared with you yesterday about cross tabulation and scatter diagram. So if I have this kind of data, suppose if I go to restaurant number 1, and then I'm just checking what is the quality rating for that restaurant after having food. Suppose if I think that restaurant is good and meal price, average meal price is 18. Then I visit second restaurant. After having food, I decide that, okay, quality is very good and the average meal price is 22. So likewise, I'm visiting maybe 300 restaurants. If I'm visiting 300 different restaurants, I am taking two data points. I am considering two variables for each restaurant. One is quality rating and second is meal price. So quality rating is my first variable and meal price is my second variable, which I am noting down as data points for each restaurant out of 300 restaurants. Now in this case, quality rating is a qualitative variable. Is a qualitative variable. So I can say these are ordinal variables: good, very good, excellent. And meal price is a quantitative variable. And because it is price currency, it has to be ratio type of variable. So I have one ordinal variable and I have one ratio type of variable. Now I have to do analysis for these 300 restaurants based on the data which is collected. So I can represent the same data in a tabular format. I can represent same data in tabular format. Because quality rating is ordinal variable, I can represent them into labels: good, very good, and excellent. I cannot group them together. And meal price, it is currency, so I can create class intervals out of it because it is a quantitative variable. So in rows we have quality rating and in columns we have meal price. Now what is the meaning of 42? Yes, anyone? What is the meaning of this 42? Yes, anyone? What is the meaning of 42?
The dishes which are between prices 10 to 19, they have been got good rating 42 times.
Yes. So out of 300 restaurants, the total restaurants are 300. Out of 300 restaurants, there are 42 restaurants with good rating and serving food in between 10 to $19. The average meal price is between 10 to $19. There are two restaurants. There are only two restaurants out of 200 with a good rating and serving food with the average meal price between $30 to $39, and so on. So every value is associated with two variables, one in the rows and one in the columns, is associated with two values. So generally we call all these values as joint values, and all these values as marginal values, Now what is the meaning of this 76? What is the meaning of this 76? Yes, anyone? So irrespective of quality rating, when I say 76 is a marginal value, irrespective of quality rating, there are 76 restaurants out of 300 who are serving food between $30 to $39. Who are serving food with the average meal cost as $30 to $39. So this 76 is only associated with the column heading. Similarly, this 84 is only associated with the row heading. There are 84 restaurants out of 300 which are having good quality rating. So likewise, I can represent the two variables for 300 restaurants in a tabular method, and this method is called as cross tabulation. We are not going to go into more details of cross tabulation. If you go to SPSS, there are multiple methods using which you can do analysis on cross tabulation. Now, if the total number of restaurants are 300, and if I divide all the values by 300, then what I get is the probability value. If I divide all the values by 300, because the total is 300, so I'll get 1 here. And what I get here is the probability value. So there are 14% restaurants. With good quality rating and serving food between $10 to $19, and so on. So these are my joint probabilities and these are my marginal probabilities. Okay. So this is just for information how you can calculate probabilities, though probability is not part of this course. So we'll now go to the next slide. So this is how you can create cross tabulations, and you can do the analysis based on cross tabulations. Next is the graphical representation of two variables. So for graphical representation of two variables, we use scatter diagrams or scatter plots. So scatter diagram is a graphical representation of relationship between two quantitative variables, and we can add a trend line in Excel. We can I'll show you how to do that. We can add a trend line which provides an approximation of the relationship, what type of relationship we have, whether we have a positive relationship or a negative relationship. So suppose we have this data set. Now the same data set is there in Excel. So I'll shift on Excel. So the same data set is here. We have data about 10 weeks with number of commercials which I'm releasing in media and what amount of sales I'm getting for my products. So in week number 1, I'm releasing only 2 commercials in the media, whereas there are 50 products which are getting sold. Then in second week, I'm releasing 5 commercials and my product sell has been increased to 57. Likewise, I have data for 10 weeks. Now I want to understand the relationship between commercials and sales. If I float n number of commercials, what can I expect as my sales? So just select these 2 columns with all the data values and go to scatter diagram. Select the simple scatter diagram. So this is your simple scatter diagram from this data. Now if you look at this scatter diagram, we don't have any values on the y-axis till 30. We don't have any values on y-axis till 30. So what we can do is just select on y-axis, right click and format axis. If you click on format axis, it will ask for the minimum maximum value. Right now it is by default 0 and maximum is 70. You can change that and you can make it 30. So auto will become reset and value is 30. Even you can go for 35 also. So I'll make it 35. So you can see y-axis is starting from 35 now. So this is how you can plot your x and y values. So for 2, I am plotting 50. For 5, I am plotting at 57. 1 against 41 and so on. If you go to any one data point, you can see data point 2, 250. Then this is data point 3, 354. So this is a data point 354 and so on. Now from all the data points and looking at the scatter diagram, you can see there is a upward trend. There is an upward trend. That means if I increase number of commercials, my product sell is going to increase or increasing. Right now I am seeing upward trend. This is called as positive relationship. When I increase X, if Y is also increasing, that means there is a positive relationship. With increase in X, if Y is decreasing, that means downward trend, then I call it as a negative relationship. So we'll cover in more details about correlation in case of correlation in the session number 4 and 5. So right now this is scatter diagram output, and now if you select any one data point in the scatter diagram, by default it will select all the data points. Click on any one data point, right click, and then you'll find one option called as add trend line. Add a trend line. So click on add trend line. We'll keep it to linear because non-linear relationships is not part of this course. So we'll keep it linear by default. Maximum what you can do is you can display the equation on the chart and the R square value. Right now you don't know anything about R square, but still if you want to, you can go for equation and R square value. So this is your equation of line and the R square value. So this is the line which is representing the relationship between X and Y, which is trying to represent the relationship between X and Y. And from this line, I can say it is upward trend and we have a positive relationship between number of commercials and the product sales. Now, what is the use of this equation? Y equal to 4.95x plus 36.50. What is the use of this equation? Again, we'll try to predict something which is not available with us. I know that if I release 2 commercials, then what sales I get. I know what if I release 5 commercials, what sales I get. So I want to know if I release 10 commercials, what kind of product sell I can expect. So what I can do is, this equation is representing this line. All of us are aware of equation of line. It is in form of y equal to mx plus b, where m is the coefficient of x, we call it as slope with x-axis, and b is the constant, which is the intercept on the y-axis. But this is the equation of line, y equal to mx plus b. So it is similar. What we have got is y equal to 4.95x plus 36.15. So if I want to calculate my cells, which is my y, for x equal to 10, I have to just put x equal to 10 in this equation and I'll get a value of y. If I put x equal to 10 in this equation, I'll get some value for y. But that is my expected value of y. If I put x equal to 10, whatever y I'll get, that is my expected y. In reality, what actual cells will happen, that number may be different. It will be very close to this expected y, but that number may be different. And in statistics, we do all kind of analysis just to understand this, that how each data point is deviating from its expected value. How each data point is actually deviating from its expected value. So what is the difference between the expected value and the actual value? Again, the same thing which I have tried to explain in yesterday's session. Whatever analysis we do is, the basic concept is to understand the deviation of all the data points from the expected values and to minimize that deviation, minimize that error. Fine. So even if in this case, if you look at all the values which are available with us, if you say value of x is equal to 1, for x is equal to 1, what is the expected value of y? If I put x is equal to 1 in this equation, what is the expected value of y? It is 36.15 plus 4.95. X is 1, then it will become somewhere around 41 point something. It is not exactly 41, it is 41 point something, 41.5 or something. That means the expected value is something else, but it is very close to the actual value. That means deviation is very less. So you can see this is my deviation. This line represents expected value. This line is of expected values. This line is of expected value. So there is small deviation of each data point from the expected value. So if I consider this data point, this is a deviation value. This is a deviation value. This is a deviation value. This is second deviation. This is deviation. This is deviation. So we are talking about all the differences of the actual data points from the expected data points. So we'll go into more detailed analysis of these deviations, what we call them as residues in the case of correlation and regression. But this is the use of scatter diagram. It will tell you, it will show you what is the overall trend of the data set and what is the dispersion in my data set, how my data values are deviating from my expectation line. Okay, fine. So this is all about scatter diagram, which we have finished. So I'll go back to the presentation. Yes. So for this data, we'll get this kind of scatter diagram, and then we can do multiple types of different analysis based on scatter diagram also. I have just given one example of how can I try to predict the value for x which is not available with me in my table using this equation of straight line, which is also called as a regression line. Let me tell you, this line is also called as, this trend line in Excel is also called as a regression line. And we have multiple types of regressions. We can have a linear regression, we can have non-linear regression, we can have single regression, multiple regressions. So we'll try to cover a few of the regression types also in this course. So relationships based on the scatter plot. So this is a case of positive relationship. This is a case of positive relationship. This is a case of negative relationship. And this is a case of no relationship. But in all the cases, we have a linear relationship. The relationship which can be represented using a straight line. So this is a linear relationship. So measures of central tendency, where we are going to discuss about mean, median, and mode for ungrouped data and group data both. So first we'll see how we calculate mean, median, mode for ungrouped and group data. And then we'll calculate mean, median, mode on Excel also. There are multiple methods in Excel. One is using the calculation method, autofill method. Second is using the formula method. We have ready-made formula. And third is using data analysis tab. So look at all three methods in Excel also. So the first is mean. As all of us are aware, we are doing the calculation of mean from childhood to calculate the average marks which we have received at every standard. So it is a summation of all the observations divided by n, number of observations. So that is how you can calculate mean for ungrouped data. Again, because we are in statistics, we have to talk about population and sample, both the concepts. So we have population mean represented by mu, and we have sample mean which is represented by x bar. But the formula is same. Sum of all observations. In case of sample, it will be sum of all sample observations divided by n. So mean is pretty simple. So I'll skip the part of mean. Now mean for group data. Mean for group data, which is also called as weighted average. If you look at the formula, I told you that whenever we deal with group data, we have to consider class midpoint. Now you consider group data, for example, this data. The formula is summation of FI/MI, where MI is class midpoint. So individual class intervals frequency into the class midpoint. That is my numerator. Summation of all these products is my numerator, and summation of all frequency values is my denominator. So that is the formula for calculation of mean of group data. And now why I consider class midpoint as my observations. If I consider Fi is frequency 6, that means I have 6 observations which are between 20 to 30. But I don't know which are those 6 observations. So I have to consider some value for my observations, 6 observations. So I'll consider class midpoint are those 6 observations. So what is the total of all these 6 observations? Will be 6 into the class midpoint. So that is what is the numerator is. So class interval. So first, once we get the data set, calculate the class midpoint, which is mi. So 20 to 30, class midpoint is 25, and so on. Then calculate the FI/MI product. That will give you the numerator values. Summation of all these FI/MIs is your numerator, 2150, divided by the denominator is summation of all FI values, 50. The mean will be 43. So this is how you can calculate a mean for group data. Same thing you can do in Excel also. Now the next concept is mode. Now mode is the most frequently occurring value in a data set. So mode is the most repeated value in the data set. Now consider the following data set of marks obtained by 15 students. So these are my 15 observations, and out of these 15 observations, if I look at 45, 45 is repeated 1, 2, and 3 times. 3 times. Any other value, if I look at 67, 67 is repeated only twice. Maybe 32, 32 is not repeated, it is present only once. So highest number of repetition is for 45, and that becomes my mode value. So this is a unimodal data set. If I have a single mode, that means I have a unimodal data set. Now suppose in this data set I have another observation, comma 67, the 16th observation as comma 67. Then 45 is present 3 times, even 67 is present 3 times. 67 is present 3 times. That means I have 2 values with maximum repetitions, 45 and 67. So that becomes a bimodal data set. If data set have exactly 2 mode values, then the data is bimodal. And in that case, suppose if I have another 2 observations of 32 also. So that means even 32 is present 3 times. Even 32 is present 3 times. That means I have 3 mode values. So if any data set have more than 2 modes, then the data is multimodal. So either I can have unimodal data set, or I can have a bimodal data set, or I can have a multimodal data set. So depending on number of mode values, either I can have unimodal, bimodal, or multimodal data sets. So this is very simple how to calculate mode in case of ungrouped data. In case of group data, you'll have some data with you, something like this. So you have to find out the mode for this group data. It is the midpoint of the model class. The mode for group data is the midpoint of the model class. Now how to find the model class? Model class is an interval with greatest frequency, highest frequency. So what is the highest frequency in my available data is 18. 18 is the highest frequency. When I say 18 is the highest frequency, that means I have 18 observations which are between 30 to 40. I have 18 observations which are between 30 to 40. So number of repetitions, probability or chances of number of repetitions are more in these 18 values. Considering that my model class is 30 to 40, the class midpoint of my model class is 35. So mode of this group data becomes 35. Now again, there can be error in calculation. It may be possible that the 11 values which I have between 40 to 50, out of which 5 values are same, all are 42. It might be possible. So we may not get exact mode value in case of group data. And that's why we always say whenever we try to summarize data, whenever we group data, we always lose some data. We always lose the original data. So as you go on summarizing data, you will keep losing some original data. So as per the definition, the mode for group data is midpoint of the model class, which is 35 in this case. So this is how you can calculate mode for group data. Now the third concept is median. So if you look at all the mean, median, and mode, all these 3, mean, median, and mode, are part of central tendency. Now when I say central tendency, what is the meaning of tendency? Anyone? What is the meaning of tendency?
Behavior of the data set.
Yes, behavior. Tendency is behavior, characteristics. And when I say central tendency, that means common behavior, common characteristics. So in case of central tendency, that common behavior or common characteristics of a data set can be analyzed in 3 ways. By considering actual values, by considering each value as weight. So if I have to balance the complete weight, then I have to find a midpoint of that complete weight kind of balance. That is mean. So considering all the values, if I'm going for a midpoint to show the behavior of the data set, I'm going for mean. considering repetition of values, frequency of values. If I'm trying to represent one data set using a single value, then that is mode. And the third and most important is median. If I'm trying to interpret the behavior of a data set by a middle location value, if I'm trying to represent behavior of a data set by a middle location value, then I'm talking about median. So in case of central tendency, either you can go by weight of the values for mean, or you can go by location of the values with median, or you can go by repetition of the values in mode. So weight, location, and repetition. These are the three ways using which you can express or you can try to explain the behavior of a data set. So the third type is median, where we are considering the location of the values. So if you are trying to understand the location wise in interpretation of data set, then first of all we have to arrange the data set in ascending order. So that is step number one for median. So the median of a data set is the middle value when the data set is arranged in ascending order. It is the middle value if the data set is arranged in ascending order. Now suppose we have the same data set of 15 students. So these are the 15 marks obtained by 15 students. So first step is we have to rearrange the data values in ascending order. So we'll rearrange that. So minimum is 32, maximum is 78. Now based on how many number of observations we have, there are two different methods to calculate median. If we have odd number of observations or if we have even number of observations. Right now we have odd number of observations, 15 means odd number. So for that the formula is straightforward, n plus 1 by 2. So 15 plus 1 by 2. N plus 1 by 2, that is 15 plus 1 by 2, that is 16 by 2. That is the 8th observation. So my 8th observation is the median value of my data set. So if I go to 8th observation, 53 is present at the 8th observation. So 53 is my median value. Now if you look at the 53 as my median value, then I have how many observations on the left and right hand side of the median? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the left hand side and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the right hand side. So I have distributed my data set into two equal parts. Median will divide my data set into two equal parts. It is the exact middle point by location. It will divide my data set into two equal parts. That is the task of median. Now similar to median, we have concepts called as quartiles, deciles, and percentiles. And generally in financial analysis and all these things, we divide our data in 4 quarters, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So instead of dividing data set into two equal parts, what is happening in median, if I divide my data set into 4 equal parts, then I'm going for quartiles. If I divide my data set into 10 equal parts, then I'm going for deciles. And if I divide my data set into 100 equal parts, that means I'm going for percentiles. Generally, the percentiles are used in case of examination results. So division of data set is a very common concept in analysis. Either you can go for division of data set into 2 equal parts, 4 equal parts, 10 equal parts, or 100 equal parts. Based on that, we have median, quartiles, deciles, and percentiles as the concept. We are not going to discuss deciles, quartiles, and percentiles, but in Excel, I'll show you how to calculate quartiles and percentiles using formula. So this is because we have odd number of observations, 15. The formula is straightforward, 15 plus 1 by 2, that is n plus 1 by 2. I can go for 8th observation. Now suppose I have another observation in this list, comma 80, last observation, comma 80. That means now I have 16 observations. Now I have 16 observations. So with comma 80 as my last observation, if I stick to the same formula, n plus 1 by 2, what will happen? Because first of all, this is even number, so I don't have to do plus 1. I will just say 16 by 2. Again, I will go to the same observation, 8 observation. So in case of 8 observation, my median will remain at 53 only. And in that case, I'll have 7 observations on the left hand side and I'll have 8 observations on the right hand side. So I'm not dividing my data set into 2 equal parts. So to divide my data set into 2 equal parts, I have to consider this term also as my median. I have to consider these 2 terms as my median. Then I have 7 and 7 on both sides of my median term. But median can be only a single value. Median is a single value. Even if I consider these 2 terms as my median, I cannot have 2 values as median. The median is a single value. So what I do is I take average of these 2 values, that is 54. That becomes my median. Average of these 2 values, and that is what is written here. If we have even number of observations, then median is average of the following terms. the n by 2, that is 8th term, and the next term, that is 9th term. Yes, so this is how you can calculate median for ungrouped data. Now we'll see how to calculate median of a group data. So for calculation of median of group data, this is the formula. You may think this is a bit complex formula. Let median is equal to L plus n by 2 minus CFP divided by F med into W. Where L is the lower limit of the median class, n by 2 we can calculate, which is half of the data. Then CFP is the cumulative frequency, which is preceding to the median class. F med is the frequency of median class, and W is the width of the median class. So here you can see another use of cumulative frequency. We need cumulative frequency to calculate median. So if you want, you can just take a screenshot of the screen, or you can just write down this formula and the meaning, so that when you will go to the next slide, you can understand what is the meaning of what notation. So you can take a screenshot, or you can maybe write down somewhere. If you are finished, then we'll go to the next slide. Yes, can you go to the next slide?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So suppose you have this problem, and for this data set, you want to find out the median value. Now, first is you have to calculate the cumulative frequency, and this is less than type of cumulative frequency. So starting from 6 plus 18 is 24, plus 11 is 35, plus 11, and so on. So total number of observations we have 50. Now in this formula, first step is to find the median class. The first step is to find the median class. Once you know the median class, then you can go for cumulative frequency preceding to the median class, frequency of median class, and so on. The lower limit of the median class, and so on. So how to find the median class? So to find median class, first we look at total frequency. So what is the total frequency? Total frequency is 50. Total of all f values is 50. And by definition, median is the middle location value. So for 50 observations, the middle location value is 25th observation, approximately. If it is even, it is 25th and 26th and average, that is okay. But approximately it is 25th observation. Now if I want to find out 25th observation in my class intervals, where is my 25th observation? So what is the meaning of this 6? This 6 means we have 6 observations which are less than 30. Meaning of 24 is we have 24 observations which are less than 40. That means 25th onwards till 35th observation. 25th onward till 35th observation, all the observations, all the data points are in this class interval, 40 to 50. So my 25th observation falls into this class interval. My 25th observation falls into this class interval. So this becomes my median class. This becomes my median class. And if this is my median class, then what is the frequency of median class? It is 11, simple. What is the cumulative frequency preceding to the median class? It is 24. This is a cumulative frequency preceding to the median class is 24. Width is 10. Width is 10. And lower limit is 40. Lower limit of median class is 40. So if I just put all these values, what I get is 40.909, which is my median value of this group data. So this is how you can calculate median of group data. Yes, have you opened this Excel sheet on your machine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now there are 3 methods to calculate mean, median, and mode for ungrouped data. First is by using formula. So you can directly say equal to, and then you can put average into bracket. You can see select the data set, closing bracket, and that will give you the mean value. So this is your mean for data set 1. Similarly, for median, you have a formula equal to median into bracket, select the data set, closing bracket, that will give you the median value. Mode, similarly you have mode value, mode function into bracket, select the data set, closing bracket, and you have the mode value. So this is by using direct formula, which you can calculate mean, median, and mode. So this is formula for mean. Average is the function name. Into bracket, you have to give the data set. Median is the function name. Into bracket, you have to give the data set. And mode is the function name, and you have, into bracket, you have to give the data set. So this is how you can calculate mean, median, mode. This is the first method. Second method is you go to data analysis, and then you will find one option called as descriptive statistics. So just select descriptive statistics, click on OK. Input range. So select the data values for which you want to go for descriptive statistics. Columns, group by columns. Yes, my data values are grouped by columns. It is in column format. Labels in first row. No, I'll not select this now because I don't have any label in my first row. Output range. Suppose I want to start my output from this location, and I just need summary statistics. I'll not go for other options right now. I'll go only for summary statistics. Click on OK, and you'll get all the values about mean, median, mode, standard error, standard deviation, sample variance, skewness, kurtosis, range, sum, count, minimum, maximum, everything about that. So if you look at the mean value, we have got the same mean value. The median value, we have got the same median value, and the mode value, which is the same. So these are the two methods using which you can calculate mean, median, mode. And third method is actual formula. You can go for addition of all the values in case of mean. So sum is the formula. So sum of all the values divided by number of values. So count is the function. So count of number of values again. So that will give you the mean value. It will be the same value, but I'm just putting the actual formula of mean, like sum divided by count, something like that. So you can go for multiple methods. These two methods are prominent, using functions and using descriptive statistics. Now in case of mode, how to find if a data set is bimodal. So right now I have taken this data set from the Excel from the presentation only. So we have a unimodal data set, and then suppose if I add 67 as another data point, then my data set becomes bimodal. Yes, we have discussed the same thing, that if I add 67, even 45 is present 3 times, and even 67 is present 3 times. So both are my mode values. We have a function called as mode.mult. We have a function mode.mult into bracket. Now I have to select my data set 2 times. I'll give comma and again select the data set, closing bracket, and then I'll get both the mode values, 45 and 67. If I have another value, suppose 32, we took the example of 32, so I'll take the same example of 32. That means now my data set has 3 values, 3 mode values. So I'll just go and I'll modify this this data set. My end limit is now 18 instead of 17, and then I have to repeat this data set 3rd time because my mode my data set has 3 mode values. Okay, just a minute. Equal to I made it 18 by default. Okay, it was 19. I added 2 values. Okay, so it will give me all 3 mode values, 45, 67 and 32. So if you want to find out multiple mode values, then you can try out with copying the same data set at least twice. So even if your data set has multiple modes, at least you'll get an idea that my data set has multiple mode values. Now how to calculate mean, median, mode of group data. Now this is a limitation of Excel, that you cannot have, or you don't have direct functions using which you can calculate mean, median and mode for group data. What you have to do is you have to do the calculations and then use the autofill option. Now in case of group data, this is group data. If you want to calculate mean, what is the formula for mean for group data? It is summation of Fi into Mi, that is my numerator. So first of all I have to calculate the Mi, which are the class midpoints. First of all I have to calculate the Mi, which are the class midpoints. So how to calculate class midpoints? So we have the formula lower limit plus upper limit divided by 2. So that gives 25. I want to use the same formula for remaining cells. I'll just copy and paste and I'll get the class midpoints. So this is how I can calculate the class midpoints. Then the next is Fi into Mi. That is my numerator. That means multiplication of frequency into class midpoint. So do similar thing for remaining cells. So this is my next column, FIMI. So I want sum of all these FIMIs as my numerator. So this is my sum of FIMI, that is my numerator, and summation of all the FI values is my denominator. And then how to calculate mean? Mean is equal to the numerator, which is 2150 divided by 50. So 43 is my mean. So this is how you can calculate mean of group data. More, again, you have to go for highest frequency. So you can use the max function to know the highest frequency, which is 18. So class midpoint is your mode value. Model class midpoint is mode value. And again, for median, you have to manually go and calculate which is the median class. And then you can go for calculation of median. So as such, we don't have a direct method for mean, median, mode calculations in Excel. So in case for median, if you know that this is my median class, 40 to 50 is my median class. Okay. So first of all, we need cumulative frequency, less than type of cumulative frequency. So I'll calculate less than type of cumulative frequency, which is first frequency as it is. Next is the current frequency plus previous total. And then I'll repeat this process for remaining cells. So this becomes my less than type of cumulative frequency. Now, if this is my model class, then what is the formula for a median? It talks about L, it talks about N by 2, then it talks about CFP, F of median class, and width. So what is the lower limit of the class? It is 40. What is N by 2? It is summation of F divided by 2. What is CFP? It is the less than cumulative frequency preceding to the median class. What is Fmed? That is frequency of median class. And what is width? It is upper limit minus lower limit. Once you have all these things, then you can easily calculate median by just substituting all these values. It is equal to L plus. So L is my 40 plus N by 2 minus CFP divided by Fmed into width, and you will get 40.909, which is the median value. So this is how you can calculate median of group data. Fine. I'll just now show you how to calculate quartiles and percentiles. So if this is your data set, what I'll do is I'll consider this data set of 180 values. So I'll just copy all the values just to show you if you rearrange the data set, what it will look like. So I'll just copy them and paste it here. I'll not change the original data set. And now I'll try to sort them. So sort smallest to largest. So this is the sorted data set. So you can see the smallest value is 20,252 and the highest value is okay, I have to remove this. I don't want to consider this. So 1,48,000. Now, if I want to divide this data set into two equal parts, that I have done using median. So my median value is 84,725. So 84,725 somewhere around here, because it is a average of two terms. So it seems like these two terms. So this is my middle location value. And then I'm dividing my data set into two equal parts. Similarly, if you want to divide your data set into four equal parts, and if you want to create four quarters of your data, quartiles, then you have a function called as quartile. Quartile into bracket. Quartile into bracket. Then you have to select the whole data set. So I'll select all the data points. And then you have to give which quarter you want to calculate. Whether you want to go ahead and calculate the first quarter, it will just, if you just put comma, it will give the explanation also. First quarter means 25% of data will be below first quarter, that is 25th percentile. Second quarter means the median itself, because median divides your data set into two equal parts. That means 50-50%. So second quarter will have 50% of data. Then third quarter means 75% data will be below third quarter, and then the remaining 25% will be above third quarter. So which quarter you want to calculate, that you have to mention. If I say 1, that means I want to calculate Q1, first quarter. Then my first quarter ends at 50,000. My first quarter ends at 50,000. Similarly, if I want to calculate Q2 and Q3, the cut points, where my second quarter ends and where my third quarter ends, then I have to keep my first part as it is. I have to just increase this 1 to 2. So how to do that? I have to put a dollar if I don't want to change certain part of the formula, which we have discussed yesterday. So I'll just put dollar there. Okay. And now I'll just copy this formula in next two cells. And now I'll just change this 1 to 2. And this for Q3, it is 3. Now, if you look at Q2, we are getting same value as median, because median is second quarter. Because quarter 2 means we have 50% of data below quarter 2. That means it is median. So Q2 is always median. Q2 is always median. And then Q3 ends at 1,24,000. So this is what I get as the endpoints for quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3. And above 1,24,000, above 1,24,000, all is my part of fourth quarter. So 1,24,000 is somewhere here. So above this, so this becomes my quarter 4 of data. So this becomes my quarter 4 of data. So I'll just copy it for your reference. This is my quarter 4 of data. Then till 50,000, 363 is my quarter 1. 50,000, 363 is somewhere here. So I'll consider this approximately. It may change because of one or two values. I'm not going for exact values. I'm just trying to tell you what is the meaning of division of data into 4 equal parts. So this becomes my quarter 1 data. Then from that location where the quarter 1 ends till 84,000. So from this location to 84,000 becomes my quarter 2 data. So 84,000 will come with somewhere here. This becomes my quarter 2 data. And then from 85,000 till 124,710. Till 124,710. That becomes my quarter 3 data. 124,710. So somewhere it will come here. So if you look at now the data set, I have equally divided my data set into 4 equal parts. This is just because we take average of 2 values in case of even numbers. So that will get adjusted. In the last data set, 1 value is not that much of importance in case of quartiles. So I'm dividing my whole data set into 4 equal parts with quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So this is how you can do division of data with quartiles. Similar concept to quartiles, we have deciles and percentiles. So in case of percentiles, because quartiles divide data into 4 equal parts, we have 3 cut points. We have to calculate Q1, Q2, and Q3, which will define your 4 data sets. Correct? So in case of percentile, we will have P1, P2, and likewise almost 99 cut points. 99 cut points, P3 up to 99 cut points. So these 99 cut points will define your 100 data sets. It will divide your data set into 100 equal parts. How to calculate percentile? If you want to calculate P1, I'll just put equal to, and there's a function called as percentile. Just put opening bracket. Again, it will ask for the array. That means the data set. I'll select all the values as my array. That is my first argument, comma. Now I have to put my second argument. Now my second argument is what percentile I want. What percentile I want. So if I'm going for first percentile, what should I put? Can I put 1 only? Yes, anyone? If it is a percentile, can I put 1 only? So percentile means 1 upon 100. When I say percentile, It is if it is first percentile, it is 1 upon 100. So it is 0.01. That is how you can put the second argument. It is 0.01. That is how you can put the second argument. So which percentile you want to calculate? If you want to calculate 10th percentile, then it is 10 upon 100, that is 0.1, and so on. So this is my first percentile. Now again, I will put dollar so that I can just change the second value and I can get the more percentile values. So this is the first percentile calculation. I'll just put dollar there. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll just copy this. If I want to calculate, suppose 10th percentile, I want to calculate P10. What I have to do is this 0.01, I'll replace it with 0.1. 10% is 10 by 100 is 0.1. So the 10th percentile is at 29,000. The first percentile is at 20,000. And the last percentile, if I want to calculate the last percentile, which is the 99th percentile, I have to just replace this by 0.99. 99th percentile. So the 99th percentile is at starting at 1,47,000. So this is how you can calculate percentiles.